You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
Have you ever criminally blown up your mean aunt like a balloon? Are your school books literally on the brink of eating you alive? Do you have friends that, unbeknownst to you, can travel through time? Or pets that have actually been murderous fugitives in hiding? And does the light shine brightest through the darkest of times? This is Systematic Geekology. We are the priests of the geeks, and buckle up your hippogriffs because we're talking about the Prisoner of Azkaban. And joined with me is Christian Ashley. How are you, Christian?
Nick, I'm doing well. I'm so ready to talk about this book. As the series keeps going, I just keep getting more excited.
I know. I put in bits here where I'm like, yeah, I'm just anticipating us talking about it. I'm like, yeah, these are the things I'm going to say for the next future episodes. Yeah, super stoked. But as you can tell, I'm going next and talking without asking Judy to introduce herself and talk about things. So Judy, just out of scheduling, could not be with us. We're going to miss her for this talk, but we will get her for the next one. But we're going to trap her like Rita Skeeter next time, and she will be our little bug in a bottle. I was gonna say Horcrux, but Judy's too good. She's too good. She can't be a Horcrux.
We can't do that to her. Defame her character like that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Maybe Joshua.
Yeah, maybe Joshua. Joshua definitely a prime candidate for Horcrux, for Horcrux transformation.
The truth is, it's probably TJ, and he's just putting on that wonderful TJ facade that, even when it happens, I'm not going to be upset because you played me well.
TJ giving off some major Tom Riddle vibes.
And we can say this because he doesn't listen to the stuff we do. So we can slander him as much as we want.
I love it. Take that, TJ, in your face. He won't ever hear it. So before we dive into this discussion and or possibly defaming the rest of our cast here, Christian, what have you been nerding out on lately? How's life? All the good things.
Life is good right now, Nick. It's rough with the new semester and everything, just getting into the groove of these different classes, but it is what it is. You got to push forward. Now, as far as what I've been geeking out on recently, well, I have been reading through a couple of books on Atlantis in preparation for the next Friday Night Frights, which I think, if I remember our schedule correctly, should be when this episode releases, happening on that Friday. So look forward to seeing you guys there on YouTube. Okay. But the one in particular I've been geeking out on is Edgar Cayce on Atlantis. Edgar Cayce is a very weird figure in the parapsychological world, a Christian mystic. I can't say I 100% agree with everything he says and does, but the man's fascinating.
Man, so interesting. And you're doing the horror stuff, and I didn't realize that Atlantis could fit into that category.
Well, horror is kind of like a misnomer. It's more like, in general, like the weird and fantastical.
Yeah, that sounds super fun. And y'all don't want to miss that for sure. So go to YouTube and do that. Subscribe to Systematic Geekology so you can have fun and dive down deep to Atlantis with Christian. What I've been nerding out on lately is my wife and I have been eating up some Apple TV Plus stuff, and we have just started Severance. And I have heard multiple people say how good it is. It's dark. It's very Kafka-esque. And we just finished episode 3, and man, it is just bleak, but in the most fascinating way. It's kind of a critique about work-life balance in a weird kind of sci-fi sort of way, of course. Adam Scott's in it, who, for those of you who don't know, is in Step Brothers and is in Parks and Rec, and he is just spectacular. He's the lead. So anyway, been enjoying it. If you like Kafka-esque, cynical, postmodern, technological, dystopian stuff, highly recommend. Coming up on fall break for my first year of teaching high school, and it has been challenging in a good way. Educationally, it's been challenging. Classroom management has been challenging, but I have really, really enjoyed it. And so I've got lots of things planned for October. I've got we're going to a Hobbit hole for fall break. going to Alabama to hang with family. I'm going to theology beer camp in Springfield. And I'm just pumped. October's going to be full, and it's spooky season. I'm going to come out of my shell. Like October is when Nick's final form,
All right.
gets there. So yeah. And I was actually, this is good because it's spooky season. I was listening to a podcast about Harry Potter as horror and Prisoner of Azkaban. I mean, all the books have elements of horror, but the Prisoner of Azkaban brings in the Dementors, which brings in a whole different layer to add to that. But we'll dive in. We brought up the Prisoner of Azkaban in the last episode. That's kind of the hinge for the trajectory of the series. But let's go back before we get into all that good stuff. Let's go back to talk about our first encounter with the book and how it affected us.
Yeah, I think I got this like almost as soon as it released, because if I'm remembering correctly, which is always bad when I go back in the past, my memories are very fractured as I get older. I think this was around the time the movies had come out a little bit before this, and I was getting into the books a bit more. So I finished this in like a day and a half, I think, and just loved it so much, like completely fooled as, a young, was probably 13-ish around the time. And like, oh, Sirius Black is obviously the villain because the narration says so. And then, nope, that ain't true. And you just need to learn how to be a better reader, Christian. And that's one of the fun things about this book. It does teach you to be a better reader. Pay attention to things.
Oh, yeah. We talked about some of the mystery stuff that, show up obviously in every book, but in the Sorcerer's Stone, it's there to a minor degree. Chamber of Secrets, it's all over the place. But I think that here it is done just so well, where all the threads get pulled, and once they do and they unravel, and you're just like, did not expect any of that. I go back because I saw the movies first, and so that's kind of my first experience. And so my memories associated with that were seeing in theaters, and I think probably it just hit me different than the first two books. There's something about the first two movies. There's something about the first movie that's very magical as the first part of the series goes. Like I said, 2001, it was in that time where there was just a really heightened time of practical effects along with CGI that kind of started going away. But the third movie, as far as acting and special effects and bringing in different elements of horror and new characters and different mysteries, I remember it just blew me away, where you've got, Buckbeak and Animaguses and the CGI for both the Chamber of Secrets and the Sorcerer's Stone were very much of its time. And I feel like we get to see that kind of evolve into something more mature and something that has probably aged a little better, I think. And so I think that that stuff, I was a teenager when I saw that. So of course, special effects and action were probably more of what I was looking for. And so that's kind of what I remember. Yeah.
I just realized I had my timelines messed up. This came out in 99, the book, and the movie came out in 2004.
Yeah. So
change the ages and all that to accurately measure up to how time actually works. And we'll discuss time later on too, as that comes up in the series.
Ooh, did Christian in fact have a time turner? I don't know. Where is my letter to Hogwarts, Christian? Where is it?
I've been waiting for years. It's not fair. Now, I will say too about the movie.
Yeah.
I remember walking out of the movie not disappointed, but not totally there at that age with all the decisions that our new director for that one, Alfonso Cuarón, however you pronounce his last name.
Right.
Like I remember the shrinking head's not in the books, and then not totally being able with all that. But as I've grown up, like I appreciate that film a lot better now.
It's tough because I agree. What's his name? The first two was directed by the guy who did Home Alone. And I think Christian's looking it up.
Yeah, I know. I can see his name. It's Cuaron. I don't know if that's Cuarón or something else, or Listeners, please correct us for our terrible mispronunciations.
You're talking about for Alfonso?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it was Christopher. It was something.
Oh, Christopher Columbus was the first one. Sorry.
Yeah, no. But you got it. That's great for the third one. So Christopher Columbus did the first two, and of course, mixed with John Williams and just the nostalgia back to like the '90s and all that. It's such a, like you said, it kind of goes in a different direction and feels a little different.
No, Chris Columbus.
Chris Columbus, yeah.
Presumably named after Christopher, but he just uses Chris.
Yeah, so there you go, folks. Chris Columbus, his directing is excellent if you love the first two movies. The Home Alone series he directed the first two. Also just absolutely magical movies. Having a Harry Potter moment now. Listeners, you can't see, but my cat wants to join.
Yeah, Crookshanks just showed up for a brief cameo.
100%. His Wally is his name, and he's my little Crookshanks. Yeah. So with all this, we with the books and the movies, we're the Chamber of Secrets for both mediums really brought in a ton of new elements into Harry Potter, right? We talked about it. Characters, history, monsters, magic, and mystery, that sort of thing. And we had talked about how it was a lot and at times a little clunky, even though we all love it. How and why does the Prisoner of Azkaban execute this complexification better? Or, Christian, if you don't agree with that, is the better of the two? In terms of that, tell us why.
I do think this is the better of the two. And I think one of the reasons it really works for me is this is when we start getting paid off as a reader for things that she's mentioned before, for the world building that she's done. I mean, we go through things like first book, Sirius Black is mentioned by Hagrid as the person he got the motorbike from.
Yeah.
I think it's the first book as well. We get Ollivander bringing up that Harry's dad was really good at transfiguration. Oh, no. What does that have to do with this book turning into an animagus? Sounds like transfiguration to me. And of course, there's this whole thing about the Weasley twins. They're so good at finding ways out. Well, how are they able to do it? Well, we find the Marauders map in this one. And that to me just helps build this world up more. And then it raises the stakes without being over the top. Like, there is a supporter of Voldemort out there. We think it's Sirius Black, but it's actually someone who betrayed Harry's family, one of their trusted friends, Peter Pettigrew, and now he's probably looking for him. And that's bad. This is world shaking.
Oh, man. And the way that, how we just feel the eeriness and the closeness of the potentially evil things, that basically could happen from these mysteries basically coming to light, these dark elements, Sirius Black or Peter Pettigrew, right? Where they're like, oh, the fat lady, she's like, he's in the castle, all that stuff they're looking for, the other paintings are looking for. You think about when Harry's on the hallway and sees Peter Pettigrew walking and walking right past him. One of the scariest parts, right? Because is he dead? Is he alive? Is he evil? Like, he was the character that was, told to be murdered by Sirius Black. And so what's happening? And of course, we've got Lupin, right? Who is this mysterious character that we don't really know about, who is this close guy who helps Harry to fend off Dementors, but also has a lot of very hidden elements about himself that we learn that he knows about the Marauders map and all these different things. And I think that particularly with Lupin, which we'll talk about later, but I think his character brings a whole different level of mystery. And his color gray, his clothes kind of give us that. He's a very gray character. He's just very he's just misty. He's muddy. You don't know, you can't put your finger, you love him, right? But we don't really know everything about him until later. Yeah.
Almost definitely. Like, everything that's brought up here just keeps paying off as time goes on. Like, for Harry, like, we start to learn more about his parents from a source that really loved them. So it's colored by that.
Yes.
While at the same time, we have learning a bit more about how Snape really hates James. And we start learning a little more about that here. And it just, as the series goes on, it's like, oh, okay, these were the seeds that were planted. So when the payoff comes up, this tree is looking pretty dang mighty.
Yeah, 100%. And this book here really takes also is like it was like the rainforest that grew over time, with the first part, but then like now this rainforest is here, and now from this point onwards, it's just like a radical, crazy, uncontrollable jungle that just keeps growing from it, right? Because we've got the seeds planted, and then it's just even more so in the Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah. Super good there. Super good. We talked about it. Obviously, Christian getting his time mixed up because he is a time traveling wizard and is withholding his Hogwarts information from me. It's a conspiracy, and I'm very upset. But time travel, comes into play in the wizarding world in this book, right? Which, and a lot of times time travel can get wonky when you try to make it a main plot function in a story, right? Besides Back to the Future. I think that The Prisoner of Azkaban has one of the best time travel functions in pop culture. And do you agree, Christian? And if you do or don't, explain your position.
Yeah, I know a lot of people out there don't like that this was introduced into the series, especially when time travel is brought up. It brings a lot of things, messy things. It's like, well, who can use it? How does it change the past? Can you change the past? Can you change the future? Like, it brings up a lot of uneasy questions, but I think the way Rowling did it here is very effective in that sense of, okay, it seems a little foolish in our eyes, but it's just used for a little 13-year-old girl to be able to go back and take an extra class or two. But at that same time, it's like the perfect example of a stable time loop of you can affect the past because you already did it in the future. You already did it in the past. And it's one of those things, time travel logic kind of the tenses get weird,
right?
Get messed up. But like, Harry is able to save himself because he was always there in the future, coming back to the past to save himself, because he had already been able to produce Patronus beforehand, and you just didn't know that he was well enough, but he had to have that realization later on that he was capable of doing it. They're able to save Buckbeak. We hear the axe swing down. Well, we don't actually see Buckbeak die. That's because McNair gets angry and swings it into a pumpkin instead. Like, great imagery there, great use of auditory to mess with our minds as a reader so that it pays off in the end.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think too that a lot of time, that time loop that you were talking about, that it stays pretty simplified, right? It's just this kind of 2-part time loop, and it's very determinative. Like, things happen the exact same way. And I think a lot of times when time travel gets super messy and just doesn't make sense and can negatively impact the plot of stuff is when there's multiple timelines, like more than 2, and people have this freedom, and then it gets into weird stuff like a philosophical ontology and metaphysics. Like, how does the world work? What kind of person is this? If you kill your other timeline self, are you actually killing yourself? What if your name is Loki and your female counterpart is also named Loki? Can you fall in love with that timeline person?
Oh,
and are
gosh,
you
yeah.
It just gets insane. And, I even think of like Ant-Man and Endgame. One of my least favorite functions of like quantum time travel or whatever, just under my opinion, I think it's so messily done and is just kind of a cheat code rather than like an actual plot function. And I think that now, of course, it's time travel, so it's a means to a certain end in storytelling, right? The story is the point, but I think that the time loop in Prisoner of Azkaban is closed up. It's determinative, and it helps move the story along rather than try to be like, look how cool time travel is. Let me come up with this crazy kind of sci-fi theory. Like, no, it's magic. We don't have to explain it. And this is more about like self-discovery, growth, things of that nature.
I think it helps too that the reason they're able to do it is also taken away from our characters at the very end.
Yes.
Hermione has that realization of, it's good to be studious. It's not good to overwork yourself to the point of actually needing to go back in time just to be the smartest, just to be the best. Like, you gotta chill out, girlfriend.
Yeah.
And they can't use it after this because it's gone.
Well, for Hermione too, I think she's like the most successful, the most goal driven. And I think a lot of times when people talk about time, and I think Harry Potter does this too, it's all about love, enjoying the moments that you have, right? Because when you look into the past is very violent and it's gone, with parents dying, his parents being dead and all this stuff, but enjoying the moments you have. And I think definitely, I'm just thinking about this as you said that, but I really do think that that's probably the point there for Hermione specifically, that like life isn't all about achievement and being the smartest witch, et cetera, but really taking that time and maximizing it for the things that are important, which can be academics, but it's also friends and family and things, and saving people and doing the right thing, et cetera. So
yes.
yeah. So also with New Year comes time travel, but it also comes a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, right? So Lupin, I think, holds a particularly special place in people's hearts for multiple reasons. Without getting into spoilers for the future books, Lupin saves Harry from the Dementor attack at the Hogwarts Express, right? Treats him very kindly, covers for him, and gives him special lessons, right? This is like the first time Harry's actually had like this mentor father figure, besides someone goofy like Hagrid or somebody distant like Dumbledore, right? Mm-hmm. And I think as one of the best things that has happened to Harry, his relationship with Lupin also puts him in some of the most danger, right? So I think the question that I want us to talk about maybe is like, why does the dual nature of Lupin make him one of the best, if not the best, Defense Against the Dark Art teachers in the series, while also being one of the most poignant monsters and one of the biggest catalysts for danger for Harry?
I think Lupin is done extremely well, and he's one of my favorite side characters in these novels because of that duality, that sense of this man is one of the kindest, gentlest, smartest people you could ever know, who is out there looking out for your benefit, wants you to be well, but he hides something inside of him that if it's let out, untold damage could be done. And that duality there is something that just heightens him as a character. You get that sense of, this man knows about Harry's parents. Then how much do I reveal to this child who has never known truly, in that sense, his father or mother's love outside of, being protected by it ex post facto? Is that correct? We'll just say it is. And outside of this, what do I tell him? What do I show him? Do I softball him? Do I tell him all the nitty gritty, terrible details about how James messed up Snape? Nope, we don't find that till later. And that same sense of, well, I'm not just looking after this one person who is connected to two of my best friends. I'm also looking to the other students as well, teaching them to do what I've been paid for and to do it extremely well. Mm-hmm. Along the way, that's why he's probably the best outside of, oddly enough, Fake Moody is one of the best Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers they could have ever asked for, because he actually does his job.
Yeah.
Unlike the past two. And we also, last thing, I'll let you have your way, is that sense of one of Rowling's intentions that obviously I didn't understand when I was a kid reading this, is that Lupin is kind of meant to be a bit of a metaphor for people suffering from AIDS, as they were seen back in the day, is that, oh, well, you look like a regular person, but you have something inside you that's dangerous, and I don't want my children around you. I don't want anyone to be around you. You could touch me, and bad things could happen, because people just didn't know. So they think, oh, well, in this sense, oh, he's a werewolf. Well, if he just scratches me, do I become a werewolf? What if he bites me right now? Or is he a savage all the time? Is he just pretending to be nice? Well, it's the same way think people used to do back in the days. And I missed the AIDS epidemic, the height of it, because I wasn't born until 1990. But I still hear stories of how people dealt with other people, especially, even in the gay community as well. It's like they already had a stigma around them. And then you add something else to that. It was like, oh, well, I now really don't want you around me, because, what happens if I'm around them? I could get it too.
Man. Oh, it's so good. I didn't know that about it being kind of an allegory for the AIDS epidemic, because I have heard people talk about, obviously Lupin is poor, right? He's got shabby clothes because of him being a werewolf, right? Because he can't get a job, because people view him in this way. And, it makes perfect sense because even to this day, right, the urban myth of how AIDS was started is still circulated, which is just completely false, where they're like, oh, some guy had sexual intercourse with a chimpanzee. Absolutely incorrect. You know what I mean? But it's this weird narrative that's controlled for particular reasons, right? And part of to stigmatize, to create a scapegoat, to avoid the actual problem, right? And I think Lupin later too is we get to this idea more later in the books about no, that's not true. It happened in Harry in the Chamber of Secrets, talking about like quote unquote pure blood, right? And if you've got someone who is a werewolf, they can't possibly be that, right? Giants are looked down upon, right? Because Hagrid's half giant. He's a werewolf, so all these things come into play. Man, that's so good. The allegory there is just fits really well. And I talked about the color of him just being gray and all his clothes, not just being a representation of his class and his poverty because of him being a werewolf, but because of he's a good character with more than just one secret, right? He's a werewolf, right, that we learn about, and he has been helping Sirius this whole time, and Sirius is innocent. But I just remember when you find out when he embraces Sirius in the Shrieking Shack in the movie, and you're just like, he's gone over, right? You're like, he's totally evil, right? It's over. And then of course they explain and what really happened and who Peter Pettigrew is and all that good stuff. But I think it is also just Lupin is a good representation of just what a generally accurate real life person is and what like a real life mentor carries with it. We idealize people, right? And stories are good for idealized mythical characters, right? Gandalf is my favorite character. You know what I mean? But Lupin is this flawed, broken character that ends up being both the best thing for Harry in this year and also like probably one of the worst things potentially, as far as putting Harry at the biggest risk for his life in multiple instances.
That scene where you realize, he's figured it out for himself based on the evidence of Harry saw Peter Pettigrew on the map. That can't happen. Only people who are living show up on the map. You have that scene, him embracing Sirius and going at that point, now they're working together. But what does that mean? Has it been the whole time they've been betraying us? Or no, Lupin literally just figured it out, put the pieces together, came to his best friend and embraced him because from his perspective all this time, he's been the sole survivor of that friend group. Like, yeah, sure, Sirius was alive, but he's in Azkaban.
Right.
And why would he ever go out to go see him? He's already a werewolf. Why would people want him to be known? Oh, that werewolf went to go see that mass murderer who worked for Voldemort. Like, we can't have that. And as far as he's aware, like, he's alone. He doesn't have the Potter family anymore to look after him. He doesn't have Lily and James who love him unconditionally. Sirius is gone. Someone he trusted more than anything, Peter Pettigrew. He didn't know about the whole Fidelius charm or Fidelis or whatever it was. And him betraying them. So he thinks he lost another friend there, but only find his friend is alive and a murderer. Like, this man is wrestling with so much. And I love his portrayal here.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Cause I guess he put those together because Sirius he got in because he knew about the passages from the Marauders map, right?
Yes.
That's right.
And we do find in the book that Crookshanks is also helping him out because this whole time, I think Crookshanks is a boy, has figured out that Peter Pettigrew is an animagus, has been trying to kill him this whole time, and they're able to converse in their weird animal language. We find this whole time so they've been teaming up to try and kill him and to allow Sirius access to kill Peter. It's one of those weird things. It's like, can an animagus talk to an animal? Well, apparently so. And it just works. Because you go, sure, I'll accept it.
100%. Marauders map and, animagus animal language. I had forgotten about that particular part of the story. And another reason why you got to love freaking Crookshanks, dude. The best snarky, bad attitude cat ever.
Oh, yes.
So we just went from we love Lupin to, Crookshanks is the best. But that's how wide ranging and vast the the Wizarding world really is. There's room for love for, I've heard a lot of people talk about Lupin being their Harry Potter boyfriend, which totally understand. And we have room for people who want to be Crookshanks' cat mom. So there you go, or cat dad. We talked about Lupin, all these mysteries and things that he was figuring out and secrets he was keeping from Harry and others. But of course, not surprising because Rowling is a mystery writer and the Harry Potter books are mystery/detective stories. So subverting expectations is just a part of the DNA of the series. But the Prisoner of Azkaban really takes it to a different level. Meme this phrase because I'm going to be saying it every episode about each book. I'm going to be like, it takes it to the next level. I'm going to sound like a freaking motivational speaker, dude. The next level.
All right.
Yeah, maybe like an late 80s, early 90s, like WWE wrestler. The next level, brother. Like that's where we're going.
Excellent.
Thank you. But so takes it to the next level to Peter Pettigrew being Scabbers, to Sirius Black being Harry Potter's godfather, to Harry saving himself with his own Patronus. I think that these mysteries and subversions are part of what make this book so good and even stand on its own in relation to the future books. What say you, Christian?
Yeah, I agree once again. This is one of those for a mystery/detective novel. You don't want to feel like you've been cheated out of potentially figuring out the answer. Now, 9-10-year-old Christian, when he first read this, wasn't smart enough. Look at all the clues that are left behind. So he thought the entire time, well, obviously it's Sirius Black, and we're going to have to kill him by the end of the book because he's the bad guy. But then when you read the books over again, you see the hints and the clues. Like, Scabbers has been around for over a decade in one house. How long do rats live again? Not that long, if I recall. So that's kind of weird. No one questioned it because he's just a dumb rat. Or so they thought. We get into the Grim. We see it through the entire book. So, oh no, that's a portent of death. No, it's actually Sirius, Animagus form, watching over Harry this entire time, trying to make sure he's safe because he knows Peter Pettigrew is around one of Harry's best friends. So he can't stand to let that happen. And we get to the end there. We get even just the mystery of the relationship between Snape and Lupin. Like, why do they hate each other? What's going on there? Why does Lupin really take joy at seeing Snape in Neville's grandmother's outfit when the boggart turns into him for Neville? Like, well, it's because they kind of hated each other this whole time. And Lupin tried to make up, but Snape is Snape. Like, we get these answers to mysteries that if you were paying attention, you're rewarded.
Yeah. It's if Rowling had never written any other Harry Potter books and had just given a little exposition, a couple chapters on the background of Harry, kind of like our background that we get in the Sorcerer's Stone, where it's kind of very boring background information, which it's there, it's good. As you grow older, you appreciate those type of things, especially as someone who loves the appendices of The Return of the King. I get it. But I feel like that we probably, I would be happy with The Prisoner of Azkaban by itself, as it stands alone as a story, because I think that it is not as expansive. The Wizarding world is not as expansive as it gets, in the Goblet of Fire and further on. And, but it also has all these elements that make it a great story and a great mystery story, and a great detective story where, like I said, I'm not dismissing or saying like, yeah, I'd be totally fine with getting rid of everything. Absolutely not. I want the whole series. I want the big world. I want the whole story. But if this was by itself, I think it has the elements to be there by itself, because it is such a different book than the Sorcerer's Stone and the Chamber of Secrets to a certain extent. You know, and it just, like you said, it by itself, it pays off. Now, of course, we need to kind of have those seeds that you talked about to really kind of get we don't just get the payoff from the beginning of the story with Mysteries, but all these other things that are hinted at the previous two books kind of just emerge and grow into something bigger than we thought they were. But man, I just love this. The Buckbeak, you know, probably one of my favorite plots, man. I mean, you gotta love Buckbeak, right? Like,
and poor Hagrid, he means well, but like he just, honestly, I kind of agree with some criticism that he's just not fit to be a professor.
Yeah.
He's fit to be an enjoyer of the subject. And like, there are plenty of things I enjoy. Like, I enjoy studying history. I enjoy looking, you know, at herpetology, but I'm not ever going to be a herpetologist. I'm not ever going to be the historian. I don't want to do that. Like, I'm just not qualified for it, but I can still open up a book about history and just have a lot of fun every day. And Hagrid is just he means extremely well, but he forgets what he's dealing with because, well, I can take it, therefore everyone else can. Forgetting the fact that he's however many feet tall, half giant, and a lot of things are intimidated by that.
Yeah, it just cracks me up that Hagrid's position here ends up staying through the Goblet of Fire, and I think onwards, right?
Yep. I think he only leaves later on when certain things happen.
Yeah.
Not to spoil, and he's like, nope, can't be around.
Man. Yeah. That's right. But Buckbeak, you know, is that, man, Hagrid just has a bad time with monsters in general. Like, he gets a baby dragon and immediately has to let it go. He's sad. His best friend, his spider, you know, gets in trouble at Hogwarts and Tom Riddle, and he ends up keeping him in the woods, but then they try to kill Harry and Ron. And now Buckbeak, you know, attacks the worst person possible, you know, Draco Malfoy, which, you know,
who deserves it.
I think everybody who watched that movie or reads the book gives a little freaking kip, when it happens, you know. But of course,
the Slash and Hermione punching him too, like, it's so satisfying.
So satisfying. Like, people have talked about how Hermione does that and commits violence in a way that's ethically questionable. But I don't even care. I don't even care.
I didn't see it happen.
Exactly.
I'll let it slide.
And I'll admit it. I will watch. I watch that movie and I watch it again, and I like it.
Yes,
I'm a fallen man. You know, Martin Luther. If you sin, you got to sin boldly. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's quite what he meant, but I'm taking it and running with it.
Well, even with Draco too, he gets some comeuppance. Like, we learned Harry this whole time. We haven't really talked about the Dementors.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that they're emotion eaters that are essentially an allegory for depression.
Right.
And he is dealing with a lot worse than everyone else because of the immense trauma he's experienced that he just hasn't been able to handle well because therapists don't exist in the magical world. And that's unfortunate. But that moment in that one Quidditch match where he, and I think it's Crabbe and Goyle, like, dress up as the Mentors to scare Harry, and he produces his first Patronus without realizing it to take them down. It's just such a satisfying moment as McGonagall, like, is about to beat them for what they've done, and they win the game. It's like, it's perfect.
Yeah. So many losses for our bad guys, as usual, and so many wins. Well, you know, this may be the last book where we really get some serious wins without some major losses. You know, there's the cost isn't quite as high as we'll see for the victories in the next oncoming books. But I think too, just the Dementors, because like you said, I feel like we have to. I should have included this as a further discussion note or point. But the symbolism in the Prisoner of Azkaban for characters, for new creatures, for things that are happening, just start to bloom in a way that the Harry Potter series, I think, is heading, will be known for, right? Where you recognize people return to those books over and over again, and you learn something new. and the Dementors become this symbol of something even more than what J.K. Rowling intended them to be. These things that suck your soul and suck your emotion. There's so many different types of ways people relate to that personally with depression and beyond. I've heard people talk about like spiritual trauma related to, Dementors and how that's embodied. And, I'm trying, it just is, the Dementors is a big one, but we really do see that symbolism and those almost universal resonances that are available through just good storytelling and good writing. And like you said, those good books do that by themselves, where elements like the Dementors, like one monster in the story, evolves into this thing that people can engage with on so many different levels. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And like the fact that they can only be beaten by having your mind in the right spot to where you can focus on what matters, on what truly brings you joy, is something like, sure, it's on the nose, but it works. Like, because it's not always going to be a cure-all, but it's good when you're in those depressive episodes to remember, what do I still have working for me? And like, even like the idea that chocolate just cheers you up, however magically that works. Yeah, it does sometimes. It's sometimes just nice to have one good thing going for me. Like someone hands me a chocolate bar and I've had the most miserable day in my life. It cheers me up. Or like I just have, I did well in a game I played or something like that. Like,
absolutely.
You got to take those small victories, think about them and realize, oh, well, those small victories, they're small. And I have a ton of larger victories out there in my life that I can use as my personal Patronus against it. Like, it's not something I'm ever going to truly conquer while I'm in this world, but it is something that's going to help me fight against it.
So good. So good. I think it even ties into even Hermione and her perception of time, and just kind of refocusing your mind for the joy, for the wins, for those joys that you can experience in the moment or in the past, right? I think you articulated that super, super well. I love that so much. But, I think that as we will probably continue on through the series, there's a lot of death and depressive stuff. So I think ending on joy and the Patronus is a good way to bring us down from our discussion here. Unless you have something else you want to bring up, Christian, before we sign off here.
Yeah, just real quickly. I want to just shout out my boys Fred and George.
Oh, absolutely.
Once again, proving themselves the true bros of the series, recognizing Harry can't get to Hogsmeade because he doesn't have a parent to sign his permission slip for him. What do? They give up one of their most prized possessions for their brother's best friend because they love him too. And they know, oh, we're about to leave Hogwarts in a little bit. Let's have someone we know who's capable of mischief continue in our steps. And I could think of nothing better than that.
Fred and George, the ride or die, man. They are those friends that just keep giving, and you're like, people do not deserve you. And they're like, yeah, we know. And they brush it off, and then they just keep doing amazing things.
Oh, gosh, I've had those conversations before. I know exactly what you're talking about. They're just true bros. And not just bros being boys, like plenty of girls have been bros to me, too.
100%. Yeah, bro. When we're talking about bros and the way we're talking about it, transcends that any
like
categories. Yeah, dude. He's a dude. She's a dude. We're all dudes. Less than Jake said it good in the intro to Good Burger.
Oh yes.
Which the second.
If that doesn't cheer you up, I don't know what will.
Yeah, literally. And I don't care if it's a nostalgic cash grab. I'm pumped for Good Burger too. Are you?
Excellent.
Okay, so we will transition to the recommendations here. Christian, what do you got in the recommendation holster for our listeners?
Yeah, as I'm continuing to catch up to modern DC comics, I'm caught up with Batman. I'm caught up with Superman and Action Comics. So now I'm doing the Flash with the Jeremy Adams, Wally West run, and I am really enjoying it. This is someone who cares about the character a lot. He's getting through a lot of wacky hijinks. There was a really fun meta issue I just read where he and Dr. Fate were actually talking to the reader. You've got to hold the comic like this in order for things to happen. You've got to believe in us to get this done. It's like, I'm a complete and utter sucker for that. As someone who's written a book where that was like a minor plot thread, like I'm in it. I love it. So Jeremy Adams' flash run, I think it would start like 760 something. I'd have to look it up.
That's what so flash run, this awesome flash run that Christian is obviously super elated about, and it makes me happy the way you're talking about this run. You just got to join our Patreon. You got to follow us on the interwebs. You got to join our Discord, because guess what? If you're like, you know what, that sounds awesome, you can message us, and Christian will gladly give you the proper issue number. Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. And possibly a selfie of his gorgeous face. No promises on his behalf, but
I do charge for those.
Okay, he's charged. Yeah. We'll get you those links to that website later. But my recommendations, I am going through a critical analysis of Tolkien's literary theory, which is called Splintered Light by Verlin Flieger. And for any of my Tolkien nerds out there, and you're trying to do a deep dive, if you're like, you know what, I want not only do I want to read Lord of the Rings and nerd out about it, I want Tolkien to further shape the way I view the world. Go get Verlin Flieger's Splintered Light. It is just spot on in the way that she unpacks Tolkien's metaphysics, his theology, his literary theory, and how it just unfolds in the Legendarium. It's just chef's kiss. There's notes all in the margins. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Worth getting. All right. So this has been a great episode, listeners. You need to, if you enjoyed this conversation with me and Christian, and if you missed Judy and you've been with us before, if you want to hear her voice again, you need to go on Apple Podcasts. You need to go on Stitcher. You need to go to Spotify, and you need to subscribe, okay, to Systematic Geekology. You need to go to our YouTube channel. Check out what Christian's all about with his horror nights, talking about Atlantis. Super pumped. And all the other stuff that Christian does on YouTube. Join us. Be a Patreon man. Be a patron. Be a Captivate person. You'll get bonus questions like the one that Christian and I are going to record after this episode that you will only have access to if you give us your cold, hard cash. Or I don't know. Actually, just kidding. We need your money. I lied entirely. Give us your cash. We will not exchange anything else. We are not on the barter system, people. But join us. We would love to hang out with you. Love to talk to you on the interwebs. And then until next time, just remember, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.
This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries podcast network.